Hello, this is Colin Parker, and you are here for a very special edition of Culture Shock. Today we're going to be talking about the 2015 album This Is Us by the band Stacked Like Pancakes. If you've seen our material before, you know that we've had multiple members of their band on different properties of ours. Colin McKay has been on Journey Under 30. Zach Foote is going to be on an episode of The Bad Pen Pal coming up pretty soon. Zach Foote has also been on multiple episodes of Scavenger's Play. Kevin Gorin has been on an episode of Culture Shock to talk about drumming, but not just that, but also, about the band itself as well. And so today we're going to be talking about the album that came out in 2015, This Is Us. So let's just dive right on into it with These Are Odd Times to Be Alive. The album starts off with one of the strongest songs that SLP has to offer, in my opinion. I've personally seen this song go through multiple iterations, and right off the bat, this edition is faster, it's tighter, and it hits you in the face with brass and just thick guitars from that very first beat. And it's the first beat of the album as well. Although I'm not here to talk so much about like the mixing and mastering of this album, like I normally probably would, I will say that this is one of the best mixed SLP songs to me. Kellen's vocals are just a little low in the mix, but he's still at a point where you can understand him, and each instrument really has a place in that mix. The one thing that I will say that I miss from older versions is right before the moment where they start trading off solos. In one of the older versions, there used to be this like thing that would go solo battle, and I miss that so much. To this day, whenever I hear that song, whether it's in my car, whether I'm just listening to it like, on my iPhone, or if I'm at a live show, when they hit that pause, I will say solo battle, whether I'm yelling it or it's in my head or whatever. If it's at a live show, I'm obviously yelling it out, right? I really miss that part, so please bring that back. But the trading solo section of this song alone makes it a worthy starting track. From the beginning of the album, you get to hear each paintbrush and color that they're going to be painting with throughout the album. The harmonies are extremely solid. The brass is just so fat in this song, and I love it so much. They really help push this tune along. And then you get into the section that's in 7. I think your traditional listener probably wouldn't know just like right off the bat, like exactly why they may feel like dancing or head bobbing might be a little off. But certainly having this heavy section in 7 right before going back into the faster right before you get back into that section, it gives a really perfect dynamic to the whole song. These short, powerful blasts, then lyrical playing, then blow you back solo sections, the slower and heavy 7, and then they bring it all home. If you ask me, Odd Times is one of the best things lyrically and musically that SLP has ever done. And if you disagree with me, that's fine, but you're wrong. Okay, track number 2, Laughing at Me. The band has now created a more modern version of this song since this song has come out on the album. And I'm not saying that I'm not a fan of that new version, but I think that this is the one that I'm glad made the initial album. There's definitely interesting stuff in this version 2.0, right? It's kind of furthering the feel of a 21 Pilots sound on the song, but the brass parts in this particular version of Laughing at Me is, I think, what makes this version just so good. This is the first bit on the album where we start to see the rapping sound of Colin McKay come forward, and with the pattern running in the background from the rhythm section, it makes it something totally different than you've heard from SLP before this album, right? Before this album had arrived, there really wasn't moments like that in like their sets and stuff like that. But there's this little bit of that sound in a song that we'll get to a little bit later that they did play before this album came out, and that sort of was the kind of like when it was new, but this is, at this moment, this song is still fairly like a newer type of song to them, right? When this came out, Kellen had definitely been, and still is, I think, really focused on pushing into newer territory with the material and newer sounds for the band. And there's still this more lyrical aspect of other SLP material within this song, right? Which you get, I think, when you get to the kind of like the more quiet and almost kind of vulnerable moment of this song. But the good thing about laughing at me, to me, is that everyone has had this emotion before, right? And so Kellen isn't alone in that drowning sensation, and this song will help keep you afloat. Okay, SFDD, otherwise known as Shit Fuck Damn It. This is definitely a favorite of basically anyone on a tour ever. Tour stop, sorry. SFDD features some of your favorite curse words, right? Shit, fuck, and damn it. Kellen McKay has been on record as having said that this song was initially much slower and was sort of meant to sound like a demented carnival song. Like that. Da 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 da, right? Like, and you can totally get that feel of like a carnival song, like a really creepy merry-go-round, and you're kind of like unsettled, kind of unsettling in a way. But it's a good thing we really push that tempo because it is easily one of the most danceable tunes on the album. Whether you're moshing or you're skanking, you're jumping around, or just sort of bobbing your head up and down to the beat. One thing that I really, really like about this song is Andy's solo, right? It's super fun because when we were at the listening party for this album, when it was, first coming out, we were talking about how a lot of the times when they were on tour, especially on Vans Warped Tour, Andy was just sort of getting in someone's face and just making a whole lot of sound, and it was gritty and it was fun. It wasn't exactly, for lack of a better term, musical. It was just sort of there to be this moment that really breaks apart from the rest of it. But then when you go to record something like that, it doesn't exactly translate, right? And that happens all the time with music, right? Something that you can do live doesn't work in recording, and vice versa. In a way, even though this solo may not be as technical as some of the playing in the beginning of the song, I feel like there's something that is just perfect about this version of it, right? This solo still hits you hard, and it's like a chainsaw to your guts. But if that was a good thing, you feel it deep within you, and it sort of shakes you up a bit. But even with just a few notes, there's still this sort of emotion that we've kind of all felt before, especially in the rest of the song. Brown Leather Shoes. This is definitely a bit of a slow burn song, at least for me. I definitely felt the lyrics before I felt the music. Let me back that up and sort of explain that. What I mean by that is that sometimes a song immediately sets the mood for you, right? Like SFDD does. And although this is a blues tune, there's still something that right off, the bat, I wasn't sure how it would sort of, for lack of a better term, pertain to me, what my current experience was. But the lyrics of that song led to something that I feel like McKay touches on again in Money Sucks. But it's basically, the plight of every man. And in this tune, it's a place that people have definitely been in. I think especially the people of our generation, this sort of, I need the shoes for the job, but I need the job to get the shoes. It's the same thing as like I need the experience for this job, but I need this job to get the experience. It's this paradox that I feel like is just kind of all too familiar. Zach Foot's solo in this song is extremely vulnerable, and the fact that it's sort of just sitting out there in the open, just way more than any other solo in this album, I think furthers that feeling of being on your own. And maybe even this feeling of something is missing, like a support system or something underneath it or behind it. Everybody listen, we are our own worst enemy. It's too late. So here we are, the song that starts with the group chatter. leading into the majorly third wave sounding stylings of It's Too Late. Lots of upbeat guitar strokes with the group singing of la la la's and woes. It's a bit that feels kind of like being back in the late 90s, early 2000s with this song, until you hit that middle section where we get to that sound that I said that we'd come back to, right? This is where we're reminded that although SLP can take influence from those great bands that many of us admire, bands like, Real Big Fish, you can still come in and disrupt the flow a little bit with something new, something different, something like rapping or, these heavy guitar and sick riffs. Plus, this section features one of the best lines that I think Colin writes on the album. And again, this is all my opinion. This is not any kind of like true fashion of this is the end all opinion. But this is mine. And it's something that I relate to really heavily, this line here. It comes in the later half of the rap section. He says, "I'm a king designing signs that point to one thing. I'm not normal. You're not normal. Because we're surrounded in more immoral leaders and liars and thievers, oh my. But we still dream. Let me show you what I see, because people telling me what I can't do is what fuels me." I mention that last line all the time. People telling me what I can't do is what fuels me is something that I have felt extremely strongly, especially in this part of my life. And it's a part of his life that he's still in as well. This mid-20s, late 20s, I guess, for me, but still. And sort of, I guess, in a way, feeling kind of like against the world. The ending to this song is also weirdly satisfying. I really don't have any other way of describing that either. So I hope that that's something that translates perfectly and that you understand, but there's something about the way that piece comes to a close that just makes you like, oh man, yes. Okay, Rule 32. There's almost no lyrics in this song. It is basically 90% all instrumental. And I think that's a great thing, though, right? Highlighting the musicianship of the members of this band is something that this band seems to do pretty well. And taking a moment away from a frontman to spend some time doing a deep dive into the musical abilities of members of a band is something that I think a lot more bands should do, especially if you're a band that has more than the traditional 3 or 4 setup, right? This song, I think, is really just one that speaks for itself. So I'm not really going to go spend a whole lot of time going in on every single note. I'm just basically going to leave it at that thought because of how musical it is or how important the musicality of this song is. It's something that I think really just needs to be experienced. Song number 7 is Sway. This song is definitely a crowd pleaser. I totally get how the band may be ready to move away from the ska days, but there is nothing more pure in a set list like theirs than when the entire crowd and band sways together and then starts jumping up and down at the exact same moment. If this song had premiered around the same time that The Impression That I Get or Sell Out or even The Science of Selling Yourself Short, I think you would have heard this song on the radio. This is probably their most 90s third wave sounding song, at least from this album. And although I am all for the progressive sounds of Odd Times and Beyond, or even some of this new material that's coming on the new album, there's something to be said about the nostalgia you get when you hear the song Sway. Planetary. Okay, another one of my favorites. Talking about more progressive sounds, this song has a lot going on. It's heavy, it has pauses, it gets quiet, it gets big. It's just an extremely dynamic song. And it features a little small snippet of the planets, which, if you're kind of a more symphonic musician, you're definitely going to recognize, and that probably maybe you're a little hype about. The intro to this song is one of the best intros to a song that this band has ever done. From the huge hits in the beginning, you know, with the like kind of the extreme length of time in between them, kind of has you on the edge of your seat from the start. And then following into the go, 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 going into the, you know, the huge brass line, man, that was a really weak version of the go, go, go. There we go. Colin is really good at telling a story with the music just as much as he is with the lyrics. And he gives a real idea of space during the verses and giving the vocals this sense of floating within that space. Then you have your little Foo Fighters moment, bringing you into the first chorus with the brass echoing most of the main melody. Again, not to harp on like mixing and mastering, the horns could be a little heavier on that section, but again, we're not here for that. So it's just this thing that I feel like there's a really great moment of synchronicity when the brass and Colin are all kind of going at the same time on the same notes and like the same structure. And I just dig it a lot. That middle section with the whole planets moment is so insanely strong. And that moment alone, I think, makes this song one of the best songs on the album. Sharks in the Sky. This is the more artistic piece of the album, shall we say. It's, you know, it's got the sections in 3, and then it goes into your traditional sections in 4. There's a very personal moment within this song as Colin sings in French about some thoughts that he has, although they're not all PG. This song to me is a very traditional, like, this is a song I wrote for somebody, and now that person's not here anymore, but it's still a good song. So, you know, we're still going to play it. And there's this really dope trombone buildup, in this song that is just, it's so fucking smooth. And every time I hear it, I just go, oh, yes. Dangerous Beginnings, another song that covers feelings that I think many of us have felt. Maybe we haven't all been drunk at a party and met someone there, but I think we've all met someone that we were dangerously attracted to and that we probably knew was bad news from the start, and yet we still pursued it. I don't mean to sound like a broken record here, but this song is another thing to add to the list of dynamic. A lot of bands and records just sort of have one emotion, one volume, sometimes really just one speed even. But this song is yet another song with varying feels and levels to it. The brass bell tone moment is just so well pulled off. It kind of gives me chills, really. Followed by a band buildup leading into the tempo change that is just downright dirty. I mean, I will never forget how I felt the moment that I first heard that. And I actually, that same day, purposefully got Michael to meet up with me for dinner, just so when we were driving back, I could play that moment for him in the car. And he was like, oh my God. And I was like, yes. So yeah, it's just so good. This is the sort of thing you get to pull off when you have a really talented band. Pimp for a Day. Okay. So Colin shits on this song all the time, and I have no idea why you would dunk on this song so hard, because I love it so much. It's like my favorite ska songs and pop punk songs of the late 90s, early 2000s had a kid, and it just sounds so good. This song is oddly satisfying, like genre speaking to me. And Colin doesn't tend to add in a lot of vocal harmonies in songs, at least in this album. And this is one of the few glimpses that we sort of get of that. And again, that adds more to that sort of pop punk feeling. I feel like in the 90s, I could totally hear All the Small Things fading out and then this song starting to play. I just think that would absolutely make sense to me. Catching Yellow. All right, I like this song a lot. I know I definitely say that about basically every single song on the album, but This song switches back and forth between two different feels throughout it, and I think it's done really naturally. Lyrically, once again, we're in some territory of we've all been there, and I think that's okay. This isn't the same emotion that we've pulled from in other songs, and it's great that we're having a lot of relatable content without repeating the same thing over and over again. Then again, Carly Rae Jepsen's album Emotion does just that, and I still think it's an amazingly tight album, so... But we don't have that here, right? That's not what we're getting at. The last thing I want to mention about this song before we move on is how good the My Heart Is Beating rhythm with the band and lyrics following like really tightly together. I dig that moment. Like that's just so good. Renegade. Okay, in my humble opinion, best song on the album. This song right here. I love this song so much. This is one of the best examples of like that modern feel with hints of like the classic ska song stuff that you want to get in there. I sometimes struggle putting my emotions about this song into words. This is just a song of like kind of instant gratification. Also, that moment where the stacked well happens is so much fun, right? Anyway, I really wish I could better describe this song. It's just kind of a song that honestly puts me in a place that is hard to put into words because there's almost too many words to say. So I'm just going to leave it at Renegade, best song.
Sometimes I wonder what would life be like if I burned all of my money, would I see the light?
Okay, Money Sucks. Money Sucks is definitely the song written for the people of our generation. There's a lot of relatable content in this album, like I've said, but I think this song in particular really hits at the folks that are in the same age group as us, meaning, the people in the band and myself. And it is also pretty relevant to the high schoolers and middle schoolers of today, I would assume, but it is clearly hitting at the heartstrings of those of us in college or who have just finished college. And I'm a strong believer that there are no bad songs on this album, which is, I think, a tough thing to pull off in a 15-song album. And I'm not knocking this song at all, but there's something that's a little sad about having an album that is this strong and powerful and then has a song like this that doesn't utilize the band. I also get that that's the point, right, of acoustic tracks. They're usually there to break up the overall flow of things, to change things up, give it a little bit of variety. And, for a song that is just there but for a song that is also so vulnerable and struggles like this, it feels odd not including the band. But to end on a positive note, it is clearly an accurate song, and there is so much truth in this, right? It's clear that this song wasn't made to pander to people, but rather it's to voice an issue that Colin is going through, and that, honestly, I'm going through as well. Suburban Superhero. This is another song that's a bit older than like the actual album, having been a single before the album came out. But this song came into fruition, and it just like Renegade, it's kind of hard to describe. Maybe this is a biased opinion as someone who's had the honor of singing this song on stage with the band one time when Kevin had to pee mid-set. I mean, Kevin, you even had a break and you didn't pee then. Come on, my man. But still, this is a top 5 SLP song, maybe even top 3. I think my favorite everything, right? Changes day to day, mood to mood. But there's something about this song that I think just kind of puts it near the top always. It hits heavy from the beginning and it just slaps all the way to the end. It's interesting to me how there's no claps in the end of the rhythmic section, and yet I still hear it in my head as if I was at a live show. Suburban Superhero is one of the strongest songs on the album, and it makes total sense to close everything out. It's also one hell of a song to hear live, and I feel like there's nothing quite like hearing the moment when the whole audience like just reiterates, "We're fucked," you know? I think Suburban Superhero is just a really good summary of this incredible album, stylistically, lyrically, and everything in between. So there you have it. That's my breakdown of This Is Us, track by track. Normally when I do reviews, I do them in a way in which I rank the songs, but like I said earlier, there really isn't a bad song on the album, and I'd find it damn near impossible to rank a lot of these. So despite a few mixing and mastering things in the album, I honestly give this album a 9 out of 10. Like, few things could make this album better, and so I think it deserves an A. This review was something I've been planning to do for a while, but today is the end of the Kickstarter for Strange Creatures. So at the moment that I recorded this, the band is at, let me refresh, 97.7% of the way to its 100K goal. And in the moment of sort of getting that hype feeling for the creation of this album, I figured now was a good time to make this video and talk about the album that I really think made this band a band. The debut album is something that exists, but I think if you really want to see what the truest debut of this band is, it's this. This is where the band comes together and becomes a real unit, and I think it's a real indicator of what kind of ability this band has. Now, if you haven't heard Hollow, I will put a link in the description at the end of the video, so make sure that you go listen to it. It's the first single from Strange Creatures, and there's just a few hours left to pre-order this album. So make sure you go do that now. And that way we have another great SLP album for me to break down and review later this year. So thanks again for watching. As always, I'm Colin Parker, and we'll see you on the next Culture Shock.